Hello, my name is Brant Hunt, and my channel is Discerning What is True. I'm going to continue my readings of Phil Langdon's book here with the book, dealing with the book of in the Bible that is Revelations, um, which he entitled his book called Revelations of the Holy Spirit, decoded by him back in 2021. The title of this particular chapter is Babylon, the Prostitute on the Beast. And the tarot card that deals with this particular area is called the Star. And you'll notice that there are 7 stars, that is excluding the yellow star. And we also notice simply is that there is the water, being that the lady here in this picture is also putting a cup of water, a cup of water into the water. And actually, she's also doing it on the ground. Is she reflecting a balance here? That is with the water and earth, which would be water and earth, that is being one of the 4 elements in this particular artwork. So we're going to go into Phil's book here, that is in chapter 17, book of Revelations also. The 17th tarot card, that is the Star, concerning wishing idealistically and looking ahead to the coming of hope and a fresh start of healing and rebirth. In this sense, it can also refer to lost, abandonment, and theft, from which there is a need to start afresh. We become the star in our own play when we take fearless control of our lives and define our own destiny. The 17th Hebrew letter is P, Pei, P-E-Y, as the number represents the number 80, meaning mouth. A mouth is something we use to speak. An entire purpose of speaking is to communicate with another individual. Speech has tremendous power. A king rules with his words. An ordinary person also has great power in his words and in his mouth. With words of praise, he can raise a person to great heights. And with a bit of gossip, he can destroy a person's reputation. It is the Creator's mouth that has put him in trouble by blaspheming against the spiritual nature of God and making the physical cosmos he needs to redeem. Now the reading of Revelations chapter 17, verses 1 and 2. One of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and said to me, "Come, I will show you the punishment of the great prostitute who sits on many waters. With her the kings of the earth committed adultery, and the inhabitants of the earth were intoxicated with the wine of her adulteries." Only the solar Logos has all 7 bowls. Identifying the whore of Babylon is easy, as that which is doomed or condemned from a spiritual point of view, and that is simply physical nature, all the way to the creative principle, such that only rising above its duality in spiritual rebirth truly sets us free from it. The inhabitants of earth by now is a recognizable metaphor for the lowest centers of sensuality, whose negative aspects embody its urges for potential habitual darker versions of sexuality beyond the norm, such as orgistic rites and phallic worship. When we take the Creator's physical nature as female, we understand where the personification for the goddess Sophia, that is being wisdom, comes from, and how her creative status sees her parallel to the Creator, that is devil, the beast, that is, like him, she creates only that which is physical. However, Sophia, being wisdom, found ascension in her narrative, whereas the whore of Babylon is doomed and polishing brass on the Titanic. Babylon represents a physical nature and its limitations. As a great city, Babylon is the human body, a mystery into itself as a cosmic microcosm. Babylon the whore, as a fallen woman, however, is the goddess Rhea, Rhea, of prostitutes, or Astarte, as Astarte, the great mother of the lowest abominations, the depravity of Ergo, as the word soul, soaked in sexuality, holding the cup of our orgastic revelry. Verse 3 of Revelation chapter 17. Then the angel carried me away in the spirit into a desert. There I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was covered with blaspheming names and had 7 heads and 10 horns. Verse 14. The woman was dressed in purple and scarlet, was glittering with gold and precious stones and pearl. She held a golden cup in her hand, filled with abominable things and the filth of her adulteries. Verse 5. This title was written on her forehead. This is all in. Here's the title: Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of prostitutes and of the abominations of the earth. Verse 6. I saw that the woman was drunk with the blood of the saints, the blood of those who bore testimony to Jesus. When I saw her, I was greatly astonished. Verse 7. Then the angel said to me, why are you astonished? I will explain to you the mystery of the woman and of the beast she rides, which has the 7 heads and 10 horns. It's an illustration here of the woman on the beast. Remember that we're looking at chakras in here. We're also looking at stories. We're not looking at what we call, the words here are not reality, so to speak. Okay. Again, cannot be caught up and being literal. You have a literal interpretation, you will not find the truth. Okay. The truth has always been hidden, because if the truth was not hidden, it would never be out there. That's how sad we live in this world, you see. Continue with his perspective. Carry away in the spirit and the desert are allegories for ascension and the abyss. Let's see. Respectively, the ascension archetype of visiting the creator in hell as an idiom may be used with a variety of associations, especially since all 4 elements are linked to it at once, and it is the source of creation. The emptiness of the abyss may well be likened to a desert, and the cloud may also be likened to a beast, whose lion-like face is literally flashed with fire, lit up, that is, and symbolically covered in her own blood, light. He has abbreviations here, light. We might also separate its dual nature philosophically for the sake of understanding and focus uniquely on either its spiritual or physical qualities. The impurities of physical nature, for instance, are suggested present in the creative principle in purely physical terms and in any construct, such as the human body, is going to be linked directly to its creative power and influence, as if the human that is on earth is the direct and ultimate expression of his powers. The next section, the 7 heads and 10 horns of the physical beast-like creator then may be linked to both the kingdom of creation, that is kingdom from the 10 sephirot of the archetype, and the human body, that is Babylon, epitomized by the woman with her 7 chakras and 5 pranas, each with dual polarities, making 10 in total, as a way of symbolizing all the manifest, that is, in abbreviations, acted out, psychologically impurities associated with the lower somatic centers. Purple is a color of royalty, not just because the color was an expensive dye, since it is the union of red and blue, but it's also representing fire and water. Scarlet, however, is a color of double meaning, split between the highest and lowest principles. Again, he shows a diagram here of the tree of life, the archons, and the red dragon. Continue on. In its upright sense, it represents courage, passion, joy, force, and heat. But negatively, it is sin, immorality, lust, prostitution, and infidelity. The horror of purple and scarlet, the universe only associates with negative qualities in this passage, which emphasizes physical nature by itself as impure compared with spirit. Verse 8. The beast which she saw once was, now is not, and will come up out of the abyss and go to his destruction. The inhabitants of the earth, whose names have not been written in the book of life from the creation of the world, will be astonished when they see the beast, because he once was, now is not, and yet will come. In the Apocalypse Unsealed by James M. Price, that explains on page 189, quote, the red dragon, the definite humanetic passionate nature, is the principle which is in close alliance with the beast, or phoretic mind, that is the lower mind, impels the soul to continue to incarnate. He does sustain the woman who typifies physical existence. He rises from the abyss, the impure elements, and again distinguishes disintegrated in them when the soul is purified. The formula was, is not, and shall be present merely expresses in an enigmatic way the Platonic, that is Platonic doctrine that is in the spirit of generation. Quote, nothing really is, but all things are becoming. Quote, that is, the phenomenon world partakes of permanent being, but, quote, all things are being created and destroyed, coming into existence and passing into new forms. Quote, those who in life do not find ascension before their death are the inhabitants of the cosmos, whose names have not been written in the book of life. Yet, in other words, when people face the Creator in death between incarnations, they see the great judge in front of them, the one who was the original creative principle, and are astonished of its reality, only to reincarnate into its manifestation, to return again on their ascension or death. Pretty straightforward, isn't it? Verse 9 in Revelation chapter 17. This calls for a mind with wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 hills on which the woman sits. Verse 10. They are also 7 kings. 5 have fallen, 1 is, the other has not yet come. But when he does come, he must remain for a little while. Verse 11. The beast who once was and now is not is the 8th king. He belongs to the 7 and is going to his destruction. Quote. A mind with wisdom is a limited, clear-sighted mind with hermetic insight. The 7 hills are crudely and energetically expressed cosmically as kingdoms, while refined as personal chakras. The 7 heads of the dragon associate with the carnal desires of the beast, that is pride, greed, wrath, envy, lust, gluttony, and sloth. They are counterparts of the spiritual virtues respectively known as humility, generosity, patience, gratitude, chastity, temperaments, and diligence. The act of incarnation, that is, quote, on which the woman sits, sees us conquer each chakra physical principle in turn, according to the mystery tradition, such that a typical set of lifetimes to become the conqueror become a very expected 7, in which each chakra associated nature dominates each lifetime in turn. Such a neat and tidy estimation is, of course, an idealized concept, whereas the reality may be far more repetitive, since we are all born fresh with a blank sheet and no memory of our personal record or past achievements. We may be the result of those previous achievements, spiritually speaking, and yet still need to bring our talents forward using what we have in our current situation, whether restricted or not, rich or poor. Spirit simply is with no baggage. Here and now is the ever-present. Memory is an issue of the brain for life's purpose, other than our ability to assess our own past records spiritually. Our residue after death, previously mentioned, that is in parentheses here, a skeleton in the closet spiritually, is the 8th son of perdition. Consider the spread of 7 incarnations. The mysteries are suggesting here that the conqueror is represented as being in the 6th of the series of 7 incarnations, so that 5 of them have perished and the 7th is yet to come. Hence, the dragon later on in the drama is again imprisoned in the abyss and cannot be utterly slain until that seventh and last incarnation. It's all from James M. Price and the Apocalypse Unsealed, page 190. Back to what Philip is sharing here, Phil. Hermetically, we may also take this riddle as a macro/microcosmic fusion, meaning the five that have fallen are the only kingdoms to be purely physical in nature, the ones between the only two kingdoms that contain the spiritual element, that is, the first and the last. The beast who once was and now is not is an eighth king. If we count the kingdoms from creator to the human and back again to the light, he belongs to the seven kingdoms, and yet he's going to his destruction as the physical body he made when he dies, outlived by the Son of God's spiritual aspect. Verse 12. So the 10 horns you saw are the 10 kings who have not yet received a kingdom, but who for 1 hour will receive authority as kings along with the beast. Verse 13. They have one purpose and will give their power and authority to the beast. Verse 14. They will make war against the Lamb, but the Lamb will overcome them because he is the Lord of lords and King of kings, and with him will be his call, chosen and faithful. Back to Phil's illustrations here. The Illuminate has their work cut out for them. On the return to the body and its functions, we are gripped by the intensifying of its forces in the personal, passionate nature and a tendency away from the spiritual that requires more effort to conquer and control at first. The pranas, that is double as the polarized 10 horns or life winds, have not yet linked to the kingdom of the cerebrovian spinal system, since the Lamb has not gained full control over them at this stage. Therefore, they have not received their crowns, turning them from a physical nuisance into a spiritual power. One hour is Horus, you see, referring to ascension and spiritual power to come shortly. Both one and Horus are aligned words that mean the same thing. Horus is the Egyptian hero and savior of mankind, that is, the Son of God who rises in ascension like a bird of heaven after Ra, his father, who went before him to the bark of Ra, the ship of God that sails in the bottomless ocean. The Lord our God is one, equals Apollo. The word Apollo means not many, meaning one. Apollo is also the Son of God, like Horus. You can see how the Greeks have adapted the Egyptian way of thinking. The pranas feed the bestia force at the lower mind center with desires and passions linked to the lower red dragon, which there threatens to overwhelm the Illuminate, give them power and authority to the beast. However, ruled by the spiritual power of truth within, the Lamb of the Illuminate appreciates and overcomes this new state, gaining control of the forces, leaving them free to be God and just love. His call, chosen and faithful, represents the force subdued, allegorically as the three lower degrees of an old Christian initiative. The natural consequence of creation is to act as a challenge to spirit, being as complete in different opposites. The beast will always be the one to battle as the chief archon. The evil of automatic compulsions against the conscious choice of spirituality that overrides it, taken to its highest produces the Redeemer, Son of God, who will always win because spirit is eternal. Even when the cosmos is done and dusted, the light will always be there in its spiritual, timeless state, having overcome the beast forever, surrounded by angels. Verse 15. Then the angel said to me, "The waters you saw where the prostitute sits are peoples, multitudes, nations, and languages." Verse 16. The beast and the 10 horns you saw will hate the prostitute. They will bring her to ruin and leave her naked. They will eat her flesh and burn her with fire. Verse 17. For God has put it into their hearts to accomplish his purpose by agreeing to give the beast their power to rule until God's words, are fulfilled. Verse 18, the woman you saw is the great city that rules over the kings of the earth. You see. Back to Phil's analogies and points out here. The waters where the prostitute sits are the waters of cosmic life, the physical cosmos, and the mental plane, that is the abyss. Singularity it comes from covering every living creature in existence in a simple statement. Their attitudes in the automatic creation determine their outcomes in this cosmic drama during life, and from life to life into perfection. Going against the ultimate tide that beckons towards freedom and understanding, physical nature and its limiting lower desires in the extreme leads to disease, unrest, and destruction until they eventually recede when understood and overcome through will as spiritual balance and insight expands its view. Quote, they will bring her to ruin and leave her naked. Quote, naked of spirituality, that is, since she is only physical in nature here. While we incarnate, our physical status and condition is given, effectively by the creator of the system we are born into. If he is the devil and his system is an aspect of hell, we can be forgiven if we do not like it here in good and evil land. God uses the idea of the tree of life in Eden to grow a tree of good and evil, where personal choice, that is. The spiritual qualities of awareness and free will bring salvation. As a result, even though physical life is ruled by the beast creator, the cosmic drama is a necessary evil in order to understand the greater self and its unitary nature as tripart, allowing us to experience the zero and infinity of our own divinity, turning us into angels in the process so we can be God. Chapter 17, verses 17. For God has put it into their hearts to accomplish his purpose by agreeing to give the beasts their power to rule until God's words are fulfilled. Back to Phil perspective. The woman is Babylon, the physical body, the great city, that is the cloud that rules over the kings of the earth, that is the universe, that rules over the forces of the material world. Ultimately, she is the cosmos and the physical aspect of the cloud, the female version of the beast, which contains all the key information of the universe as its creator and product. They are each other, physically, that is, like the chicken and egg. And that is the conclusion of that particular chapter, chapter 17. Again, this is Phil Langdon's book. You can see that it speaks very little of what I thought it was. Because basically, I'm an initiator. I'm just learning this stuff, okay? So I don't know what Phil knows. You see? Because Phil has gone through ascension. I have not, you see. But I am pursuing that at this time. Because I feel simply it is the truth. And that is the purpose we're here for. And I believe that God simply is, he allows, if you want to call him creator, that's fine. I don't, basically in the past, I've not used the word God because simply it creates this whole dilemma of what I call Christianity. But he is God. He is spirit. He's the creator. And far more than that. But he allows free will. And that's something that's been denied by almost all churches. They don't believe in that. They claim to be, but they don't. And all that means simply is that they follow their father, that is, the Catholic Church, all the Protestants, and probably part of what we call the Eastern Orthodox Church, and those have basically bought into the thinking of Augustine. Now, this is not his thinking. This is not Phil Langdon. This is my studies that I've studied many years ago. And then understanding simply is what Augustine brought to the table, in a way, in a literal term, so to speak. But that's where the church is. You see, it's not in truth. You see, it's literalism. You see, because that's what they're doing. They're painting they're looking at the Bible in a literal interpretation. And yes, if you go back to that perspective in your readings and everything with go back with Augustine, yes, you will see the errors if you truly seek those errors, you see. And very few people know, even these things we don't even know could even be true history. That's another thing. Was Augustine, well, we assume he is. And he was one that was used by the church. It's interesting, the time period he was living in is, roughly, probably 75 years after, roughly maybe a little bit less than that or more, after Constantine had basically established the whole Catholic Church. And Augustine is the one who puts all that together. There are all groups that are taking place that are, they're fighting against other quote unquote teachers, so to speak. One would be basically, which is what I believe that is taking place, is a guy named Pelagius, which no one really even knows who he is. You can go back to my Discerning What Is True and look that up. I've done videos on Pelagius. Anybody today who says they're a follower of Pelagius is seen as a heretic. And I'm not going to go too much more than that. But what I'm trying to point out is this literal interpretation, when in reality, the Bible was never meant to be literal. You see, it wasn't meant to be that way. And the church has used it that way to keep people from discovering the truth, you see. It's a veil. It's become a veil. The Bible has become a veil. Now, those who seek what's in here can find it, if they know. But let's just say 99.9% of the people don't know, if not more. In fact, more. It's so smidge of a people they would even understand looking at the myths here. And I'm myself am learning from Phil in that regard, simply because, my perspective being in seminary in the past, chunking it somewhat, moving away from that, and now coming back into it and looking at it in a different way. It is part of my path, so to speak, and seeing that in reality, there's a lot to look into, not only in the area of astrology, not only in the area of chakras, not only in the area of Kabbalah, not only in the area of simply of the recent discoveries of the Bible in 1945 with the Gnostics. The Gnostics were ones that actually experienced it. That's what I gathered from what Phil tells me. And I that's the ones who are truly disciples of Jesus, you see. But again, these are stories to, but this is what's the key. The Gnostics are revealing what they have experienced. And I believe that's what they experience is what Phil has experienced also. That's what I would say. I did a quote earlier on my Facebook today, and it's something that we talked about, I think, the last time we met, which was this Friday. Sin is unconsciousness. That's all it is. It's not being conscious. It's a great way of seeing why people make mistakes. People make mistakes simply is they're unconscious. They're also basically immature, meaning they've not been in this world that long. That is, they've incarnated maybe a few times being here. It's interesting if you think about this. Let's just talk about one thing here real quick. My parents were Christians. My parents were Bible-believing Bible-believing Christians. They were not Catholics. They were Protestants to the extreme. I believe in this incarnation, if I came into, I could be wrong, speculating here, is that I was given the choice of simply coming in here, if I even had a choice, to have what I call Bible-believing parents. And as I'm here now at 63 years old, I don't believe anything what they say, what their perspective is, what they taught, not the taught, with how they lived even their lives. And it's not to put them down. That's not this. That's not the point here. It never has been the point. My parents did the best they could. They were on different paths, and I'm on a different path. You see, and that's so it was for me to figure out, was religion true or not, part of it. That's one of the things which I discovered basically in the 40s. When I was a little over 40 years old, I began to see that simply there's cracks all over the place here on the Christianity side, you see. And so then I ran away from Christianity, so to speak, because then I saw simply as this is not true. But I also basically ran away from the Bible and other things. And then I began to come back and look at other things by key people who have been in my life to share certain things with me. And to come back and look at it in a different perspective, unlike what I would have probably done even 3 or 4 years ago, but less than that. See, so that's my spiritual so-called journey, if that would be a good word. I don't know if I like that word journey, because that's another popular word which I don't like. Maybe it's be my own spiritual life be a better word in seeing that. So again, I just want to emphasize that in what I'm sharing here with you, in my own pilgrimage, I guess, my own walk or my own trail, you see, in my life. So that's going to wrap it up for this particular video. Again, that's what I'm reading from is Phil Langdon's book. That was chapter 17, The Revelations of the Holy Spirit, decoded by him. So I appreciate you being here. I wish you ears to hear, eyes to see, and a heart to see not only the difference between up here, but what's here. Okay, take care. Have a good evening.